Some young boxers laced up their gloves in Elkhart tonight, hoping to pick up another win in their quest to become a Golden Gloves champion. The St. James Boxing Club in Elkhart hosted its second annual warm-up to the Golden Gloves. There were 15 bouts tonight. The winner gets a trophy. Boxers came from around Indiana, Michigan, and Ohio, some of them as young as 8 years old. Tonight's warm-up happens just before the next 6 weeks of Golden Gloves competition in Indianapolis.
The kids get some real good experience. The families seem to really enjoy the atmosphere.
Like, this is a warm-up to see like how good I am and if I'm gonna win. So I don't know if I'm gonna win.
Leonardo did win his bout tonight, by the way. This year's National Golden Gloves competition happens the first week in May in Lafayette, Louisiana. Moore says that the driver wasn't carrying a roster of the kids who were on the bus and instead was asking the kids where they lived so he could let them off at the closest spot. Moore says Jemiah struggles with direction and couldn't tell him. So the driver let her out here at Indian Springs. That's still more than 2 miles from home. She walked down Portage Avenue. She walked through the Council Oak roundabout. And it was getting dark as Jemiah reached Bolin Drive.
Evaluation.
News Center 16's Joel Porter is in Goshen now outside the courthouse. So Joel, what did her family have to say about this?
Mo, today Brooke's family told the judge that Brooke is a good person who in this case just made a mistake. Now, for her sentencing today, there was no jail time in question as part of a plea agreement that she reached. Brooke's attorney was asking the judge to reduce the Class D felony to a misdemeanor. Brooke was joined by family as she walked into the courthouse today. Her father, husband, and a former student testified on her behalf today. The incident itself happened around 4 years ago when she was a Spanish teacher at Northwood High School in Napanee. Judge Teresa Cataldo sentenced Wilson to 1.5 years of probation. She will also have to undergo a psychosexual evaluation to determine if she is a risk to any other teens.
Brooke is not a sex offender. I mean, she may be identified that by the law because of the crime that she is alleged to have committed and admitted to, but she's not your typical sex offender. And the registration requirement for her, it just seems really silly.
Now, Wilson will be back in court for a probation hearing coming up on May 12th.
Wilson is no longer a teacher. What is she doing now?
Well, she told the judge in a statement today, Mo, that she's living as a stay-at-home mom, caring for their 2-year-old son and living with her husband quietly in Michigan.
News Center 16's Joel Porter spent the day talking to Michigan lawmakers, and he joins us now in the studio. So, Joel, how are lawmakers planning to sell this?
Well, Mo, they say the plan sells itself, partly because it looks great on a budget. Michigan already pays $2 billion in its prisons alone. Michigan State Senator John Prose says all 21 bills have bipartisan support, and they focus on simplifying the parole and probation programs and helping people go back to work once they get out. When talking about Michigan's prison system, it's a bit of a numbers game.
Of the 42,000 people that we have, 38,000 of those individuals are coming home.
Most of the inmates are nonviolent offenders.
Between courts, probation, and prison, the expense alone is costing taxpayers over $5 billion a year. State Senator John Prose has spent around 2 years drafting 21 bipartisan bills in Lansing to overhaul the Department of Corrections.
And the judge wouldn't send them back to prison for some of those until they got to the point that they'd had so many technical violations, then they were sent back to prison. Well, at what point shouldn't that be considered a failure?
The bills will redefine recidivism, or the tendency of a criminal to get in trouble again. They also hope to simplify the probation and parole programs.
But it costs $27,000 a year to go to Michigan State. So actually it's more expensive to incarcerate someone than to educate them.
Right now, the average inmate costs the state of Michigan about $34,000 a year. Senator Prose's package doesn't just seek to lock up fewer people, although that is one of the main goals. It also seeks to help former inmates get back on their feet once they're out.
The fastest way to success for an ex-offender is a job.
If you give me a job, or if I can get a job, then that'll keep me off the streets, that'll keep me out of trouble, that'll keep me on the right path.
Last week, the package was approved by a House committee. It'll now go before a full House vote before heading back to the Senate.
I suspect that we'll see these bills passed to the governor within the next few weeks.
Among the other language in the bills, 17-year-olds wouldn't automatically be charged as adults, and inmates between 17 and 22 years old would be housed away from the general population in jails so they wouldn't be exposed to some of the criminals already in there.
Okay, that seems to make sense. Do any of the bills get tougher on criminals?
Yeah, you could say some of these bills do have teeth, Maureen, particularly one proposal which would cut off state benefits and welfare to any people who are violating their parole or just skipping out, and they could also get another 30 days in jail.
Okay, thanks a lot, Jill.
You bet.
Sometimes it could be 5 minutes, sometimes it could be, like last week, it was about an hour and a half they hadn't come home and no one had called us yet.
A bus stop headache in South Bend has been testing both parents and teachers' patience in the last few weeks.
Things are going to get better. It's going to take a little bit. It's not necessarily going to happen overnight.
Well, with a call off, sometimes we have to double up routes, and that's where you're seeing some of the delays.
This week for Mother Danielle Moore, it wasn't a call off, it was a call for help, as she was trying to find out what happened to her daughter Jemiah, who'd boarded an activity bus home from Brown Intermediate.
So we were just driving around locally. It got into maybe 6:15, 6:20. She had left the school approximately 5:30.
Moore says that the driver wasn't carrying a roster of the kids who were on the bus and instead was asking the kids where they lived so he could let them off at the closest spot. Moore says Jemiah struggles with direction and couldn't tell him. So the driver let her out here at Indian Springs. That's still more than 2 miles from home. She walked down Portage Avenue. She walked through the Council Oak roundabout. And it was getting dark as Jemiah reached Boland Drive.
She said she was cold. And you got to understand, Jemiah is not even in the frame of mind to even understand the danger that she was in.
Jemiah made it home okay, thanks to a passerby and a South Bend police officer. School and transportation leaders met Friday morning to review federal and state safety laws. They say they simply need more manpower.
I would like to bring on 30 drivers. Right now we have 170. We have 176 routes.
Negligence is negligent, and at this point I feel that in this particular isolated incident, they are very negligent, and it could have been a lot worse than what it was.